So just while Xiaomeng gets his mic sorted, I think for everyone who's been here before, we're just following the same format as usual. What we'll do is we'll start with the dYdX trading team, which is Xiaomeng here, and then Carl from the dYdX grants team will go through everything dYdX grants, and then me and Josh will run through some things from the dYdX Foundation side of things. You can see on the Foundation Discord announcement that Clifton shared some of the details on Epoch 18 and AMA. So hopefully if you've had a chance to read through that deck, that'll be helpful. And if you haven't, then yeah, we'd encourage you to read that in detail just to understand the metrics a little bit, some key data points and everything interesting around Epoch 18. I think for the next AMA, we're planning on changing things up a little. We'll probably have members of the dYdX DAO more broadly, active community members, active governance members, participants, like the dYdX grants team still, trading team still, the foundation team. And then we'll try and make this as structured in terms of the timing of the sessions as possible. We might do it through Google Meet or Riverside or some form of platform like that. So we can almost have a roundtable live service so that people can ask questions during the kind of live AMA at the end. I guess we're thinking about sending a schedule and an agenda out to the community beforehand, and then they can come onto the call with questions pertaining to the dYdX DAO or trading foundation grants, etc. in general, which is pretty exciting. Xiaomeng, can you hear us, and can you unmute yourself, and then we can crack on with some of the trade? Oh, perfect.
Yeah, I can hear you guys now. Yeah,
fantastic. Hi there. Cheers. Thanks for coming on. Cool. Let's kick off today with the dYdX trading team then. So really appreciate you guys coming on today. I know you've been heads down building V4, so appreciate kind of you sharing some insight with relations to any questions to the trading team. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory and people can probably check out the blog post. But the first question that came in was, when's the private testnet launching?
Yeah, right now we're actually getting pretty close on the private testnet launch. So we're roughly targeting somewhere, hopefully by early March or by end of Q1 or end of March at the latest for launching the private testnet. So that's the current timeline we're looking right now. I think right now the most of the actual function for launching private testnet is already code complete, and there's a few kind of logistic infrastructure validator we have been starting active following up as part of the logistic for setting up the private testnet. So yeah, hopefully we can get up sometime soon, I think in February or March.
Awesome. No, really excited about that. And I think everyone's super excited to see the progress there. Next question is, when can the community expect another sort of detailed blog post about roadmap and updates?
I think we're actually having one blog in work right now, so it should be quite soon. I would say when we're getting close to launching private testnet, maybe in a few weeks or months or so.
Awesome.
So we're also including like refresh the timeline, everything there.
Brilliant. And I think some of the community have reposted some images that have sort of gone around Twitter. I think Everett was sharing some sort of like different types of user interface compared to the V3 product. I guess from everything that's being worked on, how different will the UI look compared to the V3 product today?
Cool. So that's an interesting question. I haven't not seen those pictures online yet. This may be coming from some of the portal tech we're building or MVP we're testing internally, but I think our rough goal to start with is basically getting on parity with V3 on features, but some of the UI workflow as well. So that's, I think, my high level answer on this. So it wouldn't be vastly different from the V3 product to start with. Of course, some of the workflow, I think maybe some of the later question asked as well regarding onboarding will be somewhat different, but I think the major trading UI will be very similar to V3, at least to start with, before we are putting more iteration on it.
Awesome. And then I think this question's been asked before, but what's the current thinking behind the process of onboarding to V4 through wallets, etc.?
This is another great question. So we have been working with Circle, which is the issuer where the company have been behind USDC and to work on bringing a native USDC into Cosmos ecosystem. I think they already announced that a couple of months ago. So we're kind of working very closely with them, building out the strategy is how the native USDC is building Cosmos, as well as how dYdX will be integrated with them. I think a lot of this work designing in terms of product design workflow is still in flight at this moment, but the core of this thinking right now is we'll be utilizing the native USDC that will be building and issued in Cosmos very soon.
Super interesting. And I think these questions now are more specific to sort of features in the exchange. But for V4, would it be possible to get custom alerts for like individual order positions?
Yes. So I'm not exactly sure the understanding of this question, but my guess is basically creating like customer threshold, creating some custom configuration for alerts on order position. So my answer on this is something I don't think is going to be baked into the initial V4 launch. But of course, our V4 product will be open source. Everyone can be building on it, and this is certainly like a possible add-on that either we or the community should be able to easy to add in the future.
Okay, brilliant. And then, has there been any more thought into any addition of spot markets post V4 launch?
Yeah, I think this is something we are still discussing internally. I know there has been a lot of discussion around the product and strategy about the future of spot market or other features post V4 launch, but I don't think nothing has been in the concrete plan yet. It's still in the very early stage. There have been discussion around it, but I don't think there have been concrete plan made yet.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for that. And then on to the kind of private testnet. What are the current Is there any kind of public available information about the requirements for validators on testnet?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this during the last Epoch review. So there's a couple of things we're looking for working with validators for private testnet. First of all, the private testnet will be like a handful of selected validator that we choose working with us in general. So a lot of the quality we're looking for is like Cosmos experience, right? Have people run Cosmos validator before for osmosis. This is for other big chains in Cosmos, because we do believe those experience is important. And then the other factors we're looking for is also if the validator team has been dedicated buffer to work with us, because this is actually the first time we're going to spin up the chain. We haven't run our own validator before, but I think some dedicated efforts and working with having the time allocation is just good to finding issues, and since we're doing that for the first time. Yeah, I think those are the two major factors. There's a few other factors as well based on our past working experience from other validators. But yeah, so mostly it's based on that. So this is our plan for private testnet launch. For public testnet, it will be basically permissionless, so everyone can run it in the future.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for that. And then the next one, I'm not sure if it's even kind of answerable from you guys yet, but what UI UX improvements can we expect as traders for V4 launch?
This is a good question. I think I maybe leave that into the query for my answer next time. But so far, like I mentioned in the other question, the first initial goal is to reaching some parity through V3, and then to keep improving on that. So there will be some kind of follow-up UX improvements after V4 launch, but it's not something we're prioritizing right now. I think query from the product side probably having more thoughts on this than me.
Okay, that's brilliant. We'll save that for him next week. And there's just one question here about gas costs, Xiaomeng. When dYdX transitions to Cosmos, will each trade be a transaction with gas costs?
I think this is also mentioned in the initial blog that Antonio released for the launching the dYdX chain. So there will be no kind of gas fee related to the every trade order placed.
Awesome. And the last question relates to V4 is, I think this one as well is in the blog post, but in V4, will the order book be on-chain or off-chain?
Cool. Sorry, before I answer this question, I just want to go quickly back on the gas cost. So I think it was true. The case is that there will be no gas cost for most of the trades. There's a certain things we're still in design right now, potentially including long-term order design, long-term order interpretation, which we're still kind of finalizing on some of the gas questions and other things. So those are subject to change, or maybe into the subject with certain gas potential fees there. But it's still TBD. For majority of the regular trades, there's no gas cost. Just want to clarify that. To the next question, the order book will be on-chain or off-chain. It will be off-chain. So this is also mentioned in the original dYdX chain blog why we're building like an off-chain order book plus like on-chain trades, views, consensus. The main reason behind this, we want to so off-chain. We believe that off-chain order book is a great way for scaling up the system in terms of performance and throughput we want to reach, and using the mempool. And so it will be off-chain order book.
Awesome. Charmaine, really appreciate your time and answering those questions. That's really helpful. That's everything from dYdX trading related questions. I think the next thing would be, if anyone wants a POOP from this Epoch 18 review, an AMA, head into the trading general channel. Alucard.eth will be posting a link to claim your POOP. So the secret word, I think, is Cosmos. So head in there, click on the claim form. Secret word is Cosmos, and then you can get your POOP for this Epoch review. Great. Carl, on to you, sir. So talking through dYdX grants, I guess, would it be great for you to touch on the 1.5 and the kind of progress being made there?
Yeah, for sure. So things are going really well on the grant side. We've still had a great amount of applications come in, and just generally a lot of interest from contributors in the space. And we're finding some great opportunities, both on the community initiative side, on the research side, and international growth. But obviously, the keen observer of grants will have noticed we've had some smaller rounds in the last few approvals. So that isn't necessarily a reflection of the activity or interest in the grants program and the amount of contributors that we find out there. It's more so a reflection of our kind of strategy shift to focus on really high impact initiatives that remain relevant in the V4 setting. Obviously, the closer we get to V4, even the testnet, the more aware and kind of careful we become of making sure our grants remain fully relevant in the new chain, given the short proximity of that launch. And on top of that, a pretty big chunk of our budget for V1.5 was allocated towards international growth as a way of expanding brand awareness and kind of user growth and user onboarding across different communities through typically like marketing initiatives and kind of like brand growth efforts. And in the market that we've had these past few months, opportunities like that tend to slim down just because either people aren't really looking to do stuff like that anymore, or the ones who are, it doesn't really drive impact for dYdX, because it's actually can be detrimental if you suddenly affiliate yourself with generally negative sentiment and negative news, and then dYdX branding is there. It's not like the end result that we're looking for. And so we've been very careful on the international growth side of things. We have some good ones, the Coin Academy one recently, and some great local initiatives as well. But yeah, I think overall we're still very happy, and we're super excited to keep it going. And yeah.
Real. Thanks, Carl. And I guess lastly, has the appetite changed for grantees interested in building since the FTX drama? How has that affected? I know sentiment's changed in that sense, but in terms of applications that have come in to the dYdX grants team or anywhere else, what's your
we didn't really see a big change there, honestly. If anything, there was an expansion in interest for dYdX, given that, as we all kind of saw with volumes in general, like the new users that were flooding the Discord and everything, people recognize the fact that, okay, it's time to wise up and start using a DEX instead of relying on these centralized exchanges. And dYdX, being the main brand that it is, became the go-to place, and that carried across the builders and contributors and kind of like people that we see on the grant side of things as well. So it's been great. Generally speaking, on the application count, you can see on the dashboard, there hasn't really been a drop. It's been pretty consistent in the fall and into the new year. We're seeing a pickup in January, actually. I haven't already hit the applications for like the past couple of months, even though we have some time left in the month. And and then our existing grantees and other team members who had kind of expressed interests are fully heads down and super focused on delivering their milestones and everything. We haven't really seen anybody drop off as a result. So, I would say bullish dYdX builders.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Carl. Thanks for sharing that. Sweet. Okay, on to the foundation team. So me and Josh. So probably this one for you, Josh, more broadly, but what's the main focus for the dYdX Foundation heading into 2023?
Sure, happy to take it. I think taking a step back, since we built out kind of our leadership team, we hired Charles Dawsey a few months ago and was really able to give, I think, some strategic direction to the foundation. And the team has like penned out a specific mission and vision. So mission focuses on democratizing the access to financial opportunity, and the vision is essentially how that is achieved, which is supporting and growing the dYdX ecosystem by enabling communities, developers, and decentralized governance. So I think in support of the vision, you can really break down like foundation activities into like a handful of areas, 6 to be specific. So I think instead of getting into specifics, the dYdX Foundation for 2023 really has like a number of different kind of objectives and specific targets in areas of focus. And instead of getting into, I think, like the nitty gritty, I can just kind of name off the areas of focus. But I think the foundation plays a large role with DAO development and enablement, as well as protocol governance, enhancing user support, focusing on dYdX v4 partners, and trying to build out the potential pipeline for when testnet is released. I think I have a large portion of the foundation team is focused on, the dYdX brands. A lot of DAO initiatives focused on education, as well as ensuring that dYdX as a protocol is known in the ecosystem. And finally, I think one of the most important ones is dYdX community enablement, which is, I think 2022 was a super interesting year for community enablement. The foundation team was able to pilot an ambassador program, dYdX Academy, dYdX merch. I mean, the list goes on and on. I think seeing 2 different super prominent sub-DAOs come to fruition in 2022 is also super promising in the ecosystem. So going to be doubling down on more of the same, and I think like a little bit more targeted in our approach for 2023, and really kind of gearing up for dYdX v4 testnet as well as mainnet launch, which we're super excited for. I don't know if you wanted to add anything there, James.
No, I think that covers everything. Thanks, Josh. I think the next question kind of might jump into it anyway. So the next question is, are there any new community initiatives people can get involved in? I think with this question that there are. So currently, Alucard and myself have been busy trying to create some dYdX quests. So I think probably a few of you have come in here through the dYdX quests. Essentially, we're going to keep updating that, adding different quests over time. And essentially, if you complete quests and they're deemed to be, let's say, of good quality and good standard, then you'll get rewarded XP points that either go towards merch or an NFT or give you some kind of reputation points within the immediate ecosystem, which is great. There has been some discussion around trying out new like not an ambassador program in a broad capacity that was the same as before, but maybe a smaller capacity where we immerse some like governance related ambassadors into the Cosmos ecosystem, where they go into different protocols, provide feedback on what's going well, what are the struggles, what are the difficulties, engaging with the communities in those different ecosystems, and just almost like a public good per se, where they build up the reputation of the dYdX community. And there's definitely a number of people within our immediate ecosystem that are of that quality and of that capability. So excited to sort of get something out there. It might not be for another 6 weeks plus or so, but these are just initial thoughts on what potentially could be launched. And again, I think what may come involved, and it's more for Carl and co to decide with the dYdX Academy, is people may start to contribute from like a written standpoint, education standpoint on how they can like really develop the ecosystem from an educational side of things. So excited about everything that's going on in the community from a community standpoint. And if anyone's got any other suggestions on either initiatives that we could be running that really get you all involved, or quests in general, then either DM me or Alucard, and we can try and take that into consideration. Cool. Next question. This is probably to you, Josh, as well, but any proposals that are currently active the community should be paying attention to?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. I think I'll punt on talking about the ops sub DAO for now, just until like a little bit later, and maybe we can get Carl to give an update as well. In terms of active proposals, not a lot going on in governance currently. A few, I think, DRCs that are quite interesting, or like one specifically, 0xChan and 0xCLR recently submitted, I guess, a DRC to Commonwealth about trading fee optimization, which is a super in-depth research report. I think if you don't have time to review the full thing, they've also posted a summary on Commonwealth, like TLDR summary, which I think gives like a pretty nice overview. Essentially, the main point, I guess, of the research report was to position the dYdX community in the right way when it comes to trading fees, just because, essentially trading fees are going to be decided by token holders in V4. And the, I guess, TLDR summary and main recommendations provided by the research team were, quite strong. I think it's important for the dYdX community to start thinking about what everything is going to look like come V4, just because, again, it's going to be totally open source and totally permissionless. Just in terms of main findings, I thought super interesting, just in terms of the analysis that they did, just kind of looking back over different fees and how traders kind of interacted with the exchange. Main finding I think that I found the most interesting was just the sticky behavior that larger traders are demonstrating, kind of epoch over epoch, no matter what the change in fees are. On a positive side note, I think like you see a larger amount of larger whales or traders doing large amounts of volume on dYdX, like that proportion of traders is also increasing, which I think is a good thing. Obviously, it needs to be complemented with growth of retail, but I think it's nice to see that there is some stickiness in the larger users, which is super solid. In terms of the operation sub DAO, also the Ops sub DAO team has recently shared a website with the community, just to be more transparent with updates. Carl, I don't know if you want to jump in there and talk about like recent updates. I'm happy.
Yeah, for sure. No, happy to. Yeah, thank you. So the website dYdXopsDAO.com, very simple. Obviously, we don't need to kind of fluff it up or ask to pay somebody to create a website for us. So we thought we'd just keep it simple for everybody. Just as a quick reminder, the Ops sub DAO was launched in order to build a DAO playbook to help guide the community in launching these sub-DAOs and kind of determining the best way to form one and which legal entity to choose, what responsibilities should be done, how to launch it, how to organize it, just kind of everything. So the goal is to provide a step-by-step guide that's going to help all of us as a community determine when, how, why we should launch future sub-DAOs in order to manage the protocol from a decentralized standpoint. So that's in the works right now. If you head to the website, you can look at like this Gantt chart that we created in order to kind of be able to track our building of the playbook. And the goal is to have the draft for the community ready by early March, basically. So we've got our heads down on that one. And then at the same time, the OpSubDAO is also responsible for opening a fiat bank account so that we can take control over paying for certain providers like Slack, the Discord, whatever else the community wants to use. Through grants, we set up the Gather Talent space as well, which right now is being paid through grants to maintain, but eventually maybe that could be done through the OpSubDAO as well. Any number of things in the future, but these are all providers who don't accept crypto, obviously, because they're not quite there yet, right? And so we went ahead and kind of converted the dYdX receipt into USDC, and then we'll deposit that into a bank account so that we can pay for these tools that will enable the continued growth of like protocol management on behalf of active contributors, so that we can kind of improve day-to-day functionalities for everybody as we look to scale the DAO. Otherwise, in the website, you can find useful information like our balance sheet, the trust agreement. We'll start to upload like statements, bank statements, and stuff like that as soon as we have a bank account. Quick update on the bank account is that we are in the process of onboarding with a bank that we found. And so obviously banks are super slow. I joined crypto to get away from them. Here we are working with one again, but it is what it is, and at least we're onboarding, and we're optimistic that should get done. I think that pretty much brings us up to speed on the OpSubDAO.
Awesome, thanks, Carl. Appreciate that update. Lastly, then, Josh, for you, I guess is has there been anything recent coming up on the forums or anything about the token migration of dYdX to Cosmos or anything?
Happy to answer. Yeah, I think first things first, like it's not set in stone what the token for dYdX v4 is going to be. That is going to be totally up to the dYdX community. dYdX is the token on v3 currently, and a token is required on v4 for staking, delegating to validators. But everything in terms of what that token is going to be and if there is going to be a migration necessary is going to be community initiated and really coming from the community. So to date, I think we've seen like a few maybe comments in the forums about potential, bridging methods or how to go about migrating the token over, but there hasn't been like a formal DRC yet. And I think, in the event that somebody was interested in putting a proposal together for dYdX to be migrated or a new token to be the staking token, it's we're in a difficult position right now, just because for the migration to take place, you need kind of both chains to be operational. So I would say we're kind of in an in-between period right now, but I anticipate it will be something that comes kind of into the community's purview and comes to like the forefront of people's minds in the upcoming months as we get closer to testnet.
Brilliant. Appreciate that update. Cool. That's everyone from a speaker standpoint. I guess now we can open up the floor to any questions related to any of us. So if anyone's got any questions, please raise your hand. We've got about 10-15 minutes that we can answer any questions. Well, whilst we're waiting... Oh, there we are.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Just wanted to ask a question about the with V4, if the token unlock is still happening as planned, as there's been quite a lot of talk in the market that the V4 has been slightly delayed, and therefore the token unlock will follow.
Hey, yeah, happy to jump in there. So, from my understanding, still going ahead as is stated in the governance documents.
Anyone else got any questions? There is a few in the forums currently. So there's one which might be more for you, Xiaomeng, and I'm not sure you'll be able to answer this accurately, but since fees will be accrued to validators and stakers in V4, what can we expect yields to be? That's just one question. I'm not sure if that can possibly be answered yet, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think this is something is still being discussed. We haven't any, I guess, in the final stage for this yet, but we're definitely publishing more when we're getting close.
Fantastic, thank you. Cool. Anyone else? Mo. Okay, bro. I'll bring you up. Hey, Mo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Hi. Okay. So a question regarding hedges. Has there been any discussions about alternatives for bringing the hedges to the new chain? That's one question. The other question is about the off-chain order book. Does that mean that it's not going to be fully decentralized? Thank you.
Xiaomeng, I guess that one would be for you for the order book perspective.
Yeah, I can talk about the order book. Actually, I don't have any visibility on the hedging parts. I'm not sure if anyone else or maybe the future the host from the trading side can answer the hedging question. So on the order book parts, so I think the answer is no. You will be fully decentralized. So first of all, the order book will be running and maintaining and being gossiped within the network, will be hosting every single validator on the chain. So you will be fully decentralized. And the main way that we're doing kind of the off-chain order book is for scaling the overall performance of the system. But essentially every validator will get a copy of the off-chain order book and how maintain the consensus on it as well. So it will be fully decentralized in that way.
I see. Thank you.
Thanks, Mo. In terms of like the hedgy side of things, I know that's something that probably I, from the foundation side of it, can't answer accurately. But I think one thing that potentially you can do, I'd encourage you to continue to post on Commonwealth and the forums with the justifications of why they should play a role in V4, like how it's built a community from a dYdX trader standpoint, some of the benefits it's given to users to date. I know it's a lot of effort from a community standpoint, but as with all these things, we definitely need to justify the impact it's had on everyone in the ecosystem. Cool. Last two questions. Immutable Lawyer, we'll get you up first, and then we'll get Jamie up. Hey, mate.
Hi, guys. Hope you're all well, first of all. Just a couple of points, or questions as well from my end. Curiosity about V4, actually. With regards, first of all, to hedges, Nick and Andy and I have actually submitted, as Carl knows, the proposal for the grant, and part of it was actually in line with this hedgy implementation, I would say, trying to implement hedgy usage in V4, either via ranking systems, sweat equity, etc., because I think they're an important part in the sort of cult to culture mentality in the crypto industry. As we've seen, I think having something cult-like, such as your own NFT collection, is beneficial to attract new users. So I think doing away with the hedges for V4 would be, I think, a bad idea. It would be a net negative, so to speak. But that's just my opinion and something I'm keen to look into, and we're looking into it also and discussing it in our own private chats. Another question I had, with regards to validators, actually, was the barrier to entry from a cost perspective for running your own validator, and whether you have any validators lined up as of yet.
Yeah, I think in terms of the validator plan we do, so I think there has been a pretty good amount of validator reach out to us. I think last time I checked, it's probably around 30 to 40 validator we have spoke since then for planning for private testnets. I think for private testnet we'll be likely choosing, I don't know the exact number yet, but maybe something close to 10 validator based on the selection criteria I mentioned. Yeah, so that's the rough plan. I didn't hear the first part of the question. Can you repeat again?
The first part related to the barrier to entry from a cost perspective. So what would be the cost of running your own validator on the dYdX chain from a dollar perspective, dollar denominated perspective, for example?
I see. We don't have some concrete data on this, but we are actually getting close to starting onboarding validator in February for some real run for the private testnet. So we can share more data later on once we get that.
Thanks a lot. I just have two minor questions, if it's okay. I don't know if anyone has their hand raised.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of my penultimate question of mine. It relates to a point Josh mentioned actually. So Josh, if I understand correctly, it's in the hands of the community to actually migrate the dYdX token to V4. So if we could actually work on a proposal that will be subsequently eventually a DRC, it has to be community led to migrate the token to V4. Because if so, maybe it will be something interesting to work on actually.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to jump there. I guess just reiterating kind of what I said previously. The choice of token on the new chain is going to be up to the community. It comes, I think, with dYdX v4 being totally open source, totally permissionless, totally decentralized, right? But yeah, happy to chat further if you have any specific questions. But the governance lifecycle definitely would need to be followed. So DRC, temperature check in terms of snapshot post. After there's some amount of consensus established, if that's successful, then depending on what the crux of the proposal is going to be, likely short time lock or likely a short time lock, I would assume, to be an on-chain vote.
Thanks a lot, Josh. My last question actually relates to decentralization from a general overview perspective. And I'll split it in two. Whether we have any insight as to the governance framework on Cosmos on V4, or whether we'll actually be using the Ethereum one and then maybe transposing the proposals that are passed to Cosmos. I have no clue on this. Maybe it's also community-led in line with the token. And secondly, if we're going to, are there any efforts or any plans actually to reassess either the token or the overall decentralization of the protocol when we go to V4? Because naturally, going from Ethereum to your own chain, which is validator centric, will undoubtedly affect the level of decentralization of the protocol. So those are my last two questions. So whether that will be assessed with regards to decentralization, which will also affect the classification of the token from a US perspective, for example, in light of securities laws. And the other part was with regards to governance on V4, or whether we'll be using the Ethereum governance.
For sure. Yeah, I think, Charming, do you want to jump in just in terms of plans for governance as it relates to the milestones on V4 maybe? I guess to frame this.
So right now the governance implementation is scheduled for milestone 4, which is the public testing launch. It's going to be one of the major thing we'll plan to tackle after the private test launch in March. So this is something actually is being actively scoped out by our product team right now. I don't have too much to share given this is still, I think, working in progress, but this is something the team is actively working on. I think we'll likely able to provide more information in the next blog post. And also I'm happy to get Corey in the next call as well. I think he has been the main PM work on scoping out the governance migration and everything. So I think he can share more details in the future AMA on this.
Appreciate that, Shannon. And I think going back to the other question, just in terms of what is governance and decentralization going to look like, I think stay tuned. Just the foundation's kind of currently working on a retroactive analysis of what governance on ETH has been like so far in V3. And I think currently, like, the governance team is doing like some deep dives on the Cosmos ecosystem as well as like a ton of other ecosystems, just to see, look at like best use cases for what is working in governance and what is not working in governance to try to improve exactly like you in terms of getting things done quickly and efficiently, but also ensuring that like they're done in like a decentralized manner. So in short, I would say that there is totally room for, changing the structure of governance. From my understanding, it's going to depend a lot on what the initial version of governance looks like and how the community decides to proceed from there. I think one of the things that has come to mind recently is the importance of potentially having a charter or code of conduct, just to kind of, I think, like, ensure that the protocol is going to, govern itself correctly, and to understand really like what type of decisions the community would like generally be in, sort of like what's on the table. I think like the Juno ecosystem is a super good example of that, where somebody actually had like their tokens slashed. So kind of up to the community, I think, in a lot of fronts, just in terms of reframing and making suggestions in terms of like what governance is going to look like and how decentral. I mean, like the technical implementation is going to be, as we say, or as dYdX trading states, like fully decentralized. But totally agree with you that like the way that the DAO is going to be structured after that also needs to be constructed in like a decentralized manner. But I think particularly interesting about kind of the Cosmos ecosystem as well is the potential use case for group modules in addition to the Gov module and the Cosmos SDK. I won't go on any further just because I've been rambling for a little bit, but I hope that answered your question.
No worries at all. I think on that point, there are also some interesting things to play around with regards to liquid staking. Because overall, and this is just as a side note to conclude from my end, I think what I've seen thus far is the structure maybe was a bit too complicated to understand for users, and that maybe sometimes led to less participation over time or no participation from certain holders. I think simplifying it while maybe keeping it complex at the back end, but not showing that complexity, which is what some other protocols have managed to do, such as Temple, Perpetual Protocol, etc., etc. I think would help. But naturally, on Cosmos, it's an entirely different beast that I'm still studying myself. So I will post my thoughts on the general chat should I come across anything interesting. Thanks a lot for that, guys.
Yeah, totally. I would definitely encourage you, Immutable Lawyer, like definitely make active use of like the Commonwealth threads. I think like usually keep like a pretty close eye on kind of interesting discussions and interesting points that are going on there. So I would encourage you to post your thoughts and let the discussion build after that.
Awesome.
But thanks for your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Immutable Lawyer. Jamie, how you doing?
Yeah, hi. Just from a developer perspective, what's going to be the impact for the APIs, WebSockets, and the clients going from V3 to V4? And what's going to be the sort of migration timeline?
I can take a step on this. So I think when we're building out V4, the overall API and the WebSocket, we're basically working to achieving at least the parity of it in terms of the major functions. So I think as a part of the public testnet, we'll be rolling out most of the API and WebSocket as well. Of course, right now, a lot of the WebSocket is already being used for supporting the front end as part of the private testnet. Yeah, so I guess to simply find the answer is, so we're working to creating some parity on the both API and the client campaign with V3 in V4. And I think that there will be more details and more function that we'll be rolling out during the public testnets. And we are already starting testing out the major APIs, public APIs, and the WebSocket during the private testnet as well.
So it might just be a case of changing the endpoint from V3 to V4 as an example.
I'm sorry, can you repeat again?
Yeah, so it might just be a case if you can get that parity. So with the endpoints, we can just change V3 to V4 as an example. We're not going to have to like rebuild the whole infrastructure around like completely different functionalities.
Yeah, I think that the API itself is actually going to be very similar to V3. I think depending on the exact uses, I think how much migration efforts will be needed will still be evaluated. But I think that's pretty much the goal, is providing a very similar set of API and WebSocket so that the user can easily migrate it if there's any efforts to that. We're actually planning also to publish some more details about the API docs and WebSocket docs, potentially in the milestone 4. So yeah, looking out for more details there as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Brilliant. Okay. We'll have to close that up there. Thanks for the questions, everyone in the audience. That was just, really great to see so many insightful questions. Thanks, Carl, Xiaoming, Josh, for coming on and answering those. Lastly, really appreciative to see all the feedback and support in all channels. It's really valuable and something that I think both the trading and foundation and grants team take on board. If there's any other questions or any more information, feel free to punt them into the Discord general channel, and I can ask Xiaoming or others for some answers there. So we'll end on that note. As usual, this will be deciphered. We'll post it out as soon as we can. It will go onto YouTube and we'll post it in the Discord channel. There's usually a process in the background where we'll transcribe everything into written content, but you can use kind of any kind of AI tool now, which will be super quick there. But we'll keep you updated as soon as this is ready. Real. Have a great weekend. Have a great week all, and catch you next time.